guys, what's up? It's the It's Your Neighbor podcast. We are here with episode 36. I'm Monty Raymond, and we got
Anthony Alvarado, and we're back in the house. This is the season closer. We'll get into what that means, but I'm super excited. We got Jen in the house, and we're going to introduce her in a minute. But as always, we're going to do a little bit of a recap. And before we can get into the recap, we have to talk about Harvest Fest, which is literally days away.
Dude, by the time this drops, you're going to drop it before or after?
I'm going to try to drop it before.
Let's drop it before.
I'm going to try to drop it before for sure. Yeah.
So Harvest Fest, right? It's our big event that we do every single year. It's something that we're doing to give back to our clients, to give to the people who have helped us get to where we want to go. This year, we're going to do things a little bit different. We're going to go big.
And we're going to go epic.
We're going to it's going to be epic at Epic, right?
That's right.
So we have Brad Bordini, who's obviously a huge part of our family here at Take Action Realty Group. And then we have Kurt Guns, his sidekick, and Kurt's an award-winning musician.
That's right.
And then we're going to wrap it up with the astronomers playing.
Dude, they're so excited.
Dude.
They've been on tour nonstop, and they're helping to bring this show home. And if that's not enough, we also have a family portion for free, even though the night event's only $25 to get in to see all three of those bands and to hang out with the Take Action team. Let's be honest, that's going to be awesome. We even have the VIPs in the house on the deck, so we're going to have a lot of fun. But during the day, 11-3, family portion. So just like last year, right? Pumpkin decorating, face painting,
it's
yard
kind of
games.
what we built for. Again, we talked about this before, but it's you and it's my vision. You just help me, do it, and we've got everybody built into it. But it's a big part of why I do what I do is to show gratitude and to thank everybody that's there. And what better way to do it than throw a kick-ass party?
That's right. And so we're going to throw a party of the year, and we cannot wait. So October 19th at Epic, 11 to 3 during the day, and then doors open at 6 at night. You can get your tickets right at tarealitygroup.com or epicgreenbay.com.
And we got some pretty amazing sponsors to help us out this year.
That's right. So we have Mad City Windows. They're coming through and helping out with the family portion. We have THZ doing the same thing. We just have some new sponsors come alongside us, Cornerstone Mortgage. And so Tanya's showing us some Tanya's showing us some love there. Sorry about that. And also we have Sunseekers in the house. Scott. And Scott's doing a great job coming alongside us and helping to support the event. So thank you so much. And of course, Take Action as a whole for putting this event on.
Just our friends, our family, our community. If you guys can't make it on Saturday, that's okay. I just want you guys to know that we do appreciate you. I appreciate you. And we'll make it, we'll make something out of it here throughout the year. We're going to do little events here and there. And this is just our big one. That's right.
And speaking about big ones, we have this episode, which is 36, and we are going to bring it home. This is the season closer. So what that means is that we're going to go on a little bit of a break as we get into the season of the holidays and getting into the new year.
It's time to regroup a little bit.
And then we'll regroup a little bit, and we'll kick this show back off going into early 2025. But with that, no further ado, why don't you introduce the guest?
Oh, man, we have... This one's awesome because we're in October.
Yeah, perfect timing.
It's spooky season, right? Like, we love it. This is always something I wanted to do as well, is, do something with paranormal, right? So we have Jen Lamers here. Jen.
Yes.
How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for inviting me on. I love how you're like, it's spooky season, and I think... That's all year for me.
Yeah, it is really, right?
Let's go.
Jen's amazing. I've had a couple of one reading from her so far, and it was a pretty cool, validating thing for me to have that reading. And it wasn't really anything about my past or anything. There was a lot of my past, but like way past.
We'll get into those details.
So Jen, tell us what you have a lot of titles and you have a lot of titles. You have a lot of degrees.
I do.
You have a lot of stuff. So why don't you tell us a little bit about all that?
Well, I am originally from the Green Bay area here, but I don't live here anymore. I live out about an hour away, closer to Clintonville. Title-wise, I've been a teacher. I still have my teaching license. I've been a financial advisor. I'm actually still working in financial world, but the darker side of me, I guess you could say, is a professional psychic medium and paranormal investigator. And I just started going back to school for a degree in thanatology, which is all about death, dying, and grieving. So...
See? I knew I had to maybe write it down, but you were sent that home. So thanatology, thank you very much.
Yeah, I let her just go with it.
Thank you for doing that.
I would messed up like 10 of those things that she just rattled off. So that's awesome. So I always like to hear the origin story, and people are going to go, okay, bullshit, right? Like,
absolutely.
I'm sure you deal with that all the time,
Yep.
right? So I'm a believer, like I am, but for how did you know, like, when was the gift, I guess, or curse maybe, right? Like, so
that is way more accurate how I felt about it.
Yeah.
As a kid, I grew up west side of Green Bay, right over by Oneida Bingo and Casino, right off of South Point there. And my parents had built a house back in the 70s, a great house. But man, did that house scare me. So new homes don't always necessarily mean not haunted.
Right.
I kept seeing things, experiencing things, and everybody would tell me, you're just overreacting. It's just your imagination. I've learned that as I work with people, that happens to a lot of people that are sensitive to this kind of thing, where it gets diminished. They get told it's not really happening. Little did I know until I didn't come out as a full-on medium until I was 40. So I was a late bloomer.
So 6 months ago?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
6 months ago.
6 months
Thank
ago.
you.
Good, nice.
Only been doing this for 6 months. My husband's laughing in the other room. Bite me.
He's like, hell yeah, 6 months ago.
Anyway. No, I honestly, that's not what I wanted to do with my life. I always tell people I came into mediumship kicking and screaming because, I still am very science-based. I want to understand why this is happening. And sometimes the explanation is there isn't an explanation yet. I say yet because I'm really confident at some point there will be. But at this point, we don't always have the answers. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It took me until I was almost 40 to come out of the paranormal mediumship closet. And when I did, my sisters, I'm one of 5, I'm the youngest. My sisters all looked at me and said, "Oh yeah, we knew this about you since you were a kid." I'm like, "Are you shitting me?"
Why didn't you tell me?
Yeah, it's all good.
Okay. I'm like, "Are you kidding? You all knew this?" I thought it was going to be a big deal. And they're like, "Oh yeah, you used to tell us you talked to these people and, it sounds like imaginary friends, but they always had these really weird old names and they were all like 80-some years old." And little kids don't usually make up 80-some-year-old imaginary friends.
Yeah. Right.
And I thought, okay, great. So the first person I ever really talked to as a medium was my mom because she passed away when I was 20. And then from there, honestly, when it really sprung up is a friend of mine who's now a friend. She wasn't at the time, actually. She's also my podcast host for our Paranormal Coffee Hour.
Check it out.
Right. Plug.
It's weird.
It's a good plug.
It's really weird. It's fun, weird.
It's good. Weird's good.
Her father was killed in a house explosion about 7 miles away from my home. And I drove past it and I'm looking and, they've got fencing around it, trying to keep people out of there because obviously everything was obliterated. And I'm looking, I'm like, what the hell is that person doing there? What is that guy doing there? And he looks back at me and I went, oh shit. And I'm looking at him like, and he just keeps watching me. And then suddenly I see him in the back of my car, and it was her dad. And he said, "I need you to explain to my family what happened." And I'm like, I have no idea what happened. Yeah. Do you? And he goes, "No, not really. I just need to know they're going to be okay." And I'm like, okay. I didn't do it. He then bugged me 1 year later, almost to the day, as I'm doing dishes and said, "I need you to get them a message. They're planning a party," which I didn't know about because I wasn't friends with them. "I need you to get them this message. Would you please do it? I'm not going to stop until you do." And I was like, seriously? So there I go, modern day, texting her going, "So you're going to think this is really weird? And I don't know what you think about this, but your dad talked to me." And from that point on, her and I have been friends now, like best friends. Yeah. And that's what really started my work in mediumship because I realized I could actually help people.
So was she having a party?
Absolutely.
Dude, that's crazy.
That is crazy.
They were planning a party to celebrate his life.
What?
Yeah.
No kidding.
And he wanted them to make sure they had fireworks. And they did.
And they did.
Did they have him before he warned you?
They did.
Oh, that's awesome.
They did. I'm like, so he wants, is there fireworks? And they're all looking at me like, yeah. I'm like, okay, good. He'll be happy. They're like, we know he loves fireworks. I said, yeah, he does. And he really wanted to make sure you were planning them.
I feel like that's a weird, if he died in an explosion, that's a weird thing to have
is.
fireworks.
Yeah. He must have had a sense of
same
comedy.
thing.
He was funny.
Well,
I mean, maybe he's got that weird sense of humor. Right. I didn't know him.
that could be.
So what is some of your earliest memories? Because you kind of already mentioned that with your siblings being like, oh, you used to say these things.
Yeah.
What are some of your earlier memories?
Some of the earliest memories I have is certain rooms in my home. We had woods all around our house, and because we weren't terribly far from Kenesler Park, for those of you who know the West Side Green Bay area, kind of over by Lombardi. And that area was just, it's still technically part of the Oneida Nation reservation.
Yep.
And I would see things moving outside all times of the day, but like at night especially. And I don't even know how to put it into words. I just knew there was something there. Mm-hmm. And I don't like those rooms, but it's only certain rooms in the house, not every room. There were times where I always call it the Virgin Mary, that I'd go to bed. I grew up Catholic. Go to bed and pull the covers up over my head and just my face was visible because, that protects you totally from spirits.
Of course.
Just so y'all know, cover your feet too.
Yeah.
Takes care of the
always put your feet underneath the sheets.
Under the bed spirits,
Yeah. Yes.
But no, I would cover because I would hear.
She's being sarcastic.
No, I'm not. I'm not sarcastic. This is legit. No. I would hear them. I would hear them trying to talk to me, and I nope, and just put the blankets over my head.
Could you still hear
them? Yes, but no. Like I could, but I would literally tune them out. There's just every time in that house, every time I was in a room that was near the wooded area is when I would just start to feel really uncomfortable. Thankfully, my bedroom was on the opposite end of the house. Thank God. Only thing that ever happened to me was a squirrel got into my bedroom one time. That was scary as all hell.
Those damn squirrels. They're so fast.
They follow me everywhere. No. But when I was a teenager, I started volunteering a lot, and one of the places I volunteered at was Heritage Hill State Park.
Oh, great.
Mm-hmm. And that's when I started to have experiences again. It's almost like it went dormant for a while, and then I go to Heritage Hill, and it's like lighter fluid and a match. Mm-hmm. And I worked in one of the oldest areas of the park, which was the Fort Howard area. And we constantly had activity there. I would work in the hospital. They loved to put me in there all by myself in the winter season when it's dark. Mm-hmm.
Dark and cold.
Dark and cold.
Great.
And you're only candlelight. And it was, I'd have footsteps overhead. Nobody was in the building with me. We didn't have enough staff for there to be somebody upstairs in the building with me. You'd hear footsteps. You'd see candles like going up and down. And I don't mean like a little bit. I mean like go up a foot and come back down. Things would be moved on me. Mm-hmm. And that's and one time I watched a dish go across the room and set itself down. And I was like, okay. This is fun. Mm-hmm. I stayed there for 6 years. I went from volunteer to employee.
Dedicated.
That is dedicated.
Hey, that is dedication.
Anytime I go back there, though, it's really interesting. Like it's a very different feel when I go back.
So is it like they're welcoming you back, or they remember you?
I honestly almost put my bid in to be on their board of directors because I've wanted to be back there, and I don't know what the pull is. If it's nostalgia or if there's something more. But I credit that place for giving me back what I had as a kid, which was that sensitivity.
So what age was that at?
15.
Okay.
Yeah. 15 till I was about 19.
No kidding.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's cool. So, all right. So 19, then, we just talked about all the way to 40 when you became a medium. What was it that made you decide this is my destiny, so to speak, or my path? Or was it kind of just forced?
It was forced on me. It was more like, hey, dumbass, we've been trying to get, it's like an extended car warranty.
You have a gift.
Hey.
Use it.
You've been kind of away from this for a while now. I think it's about time.
Yeah.
I went off to college and was a Badger for a while and a St. Herbert Knight for a while and got multiple degrees and did what I thought. I always say the 20s are like when you do what you think you're supposed to do.
Yeah,
So I was doing
Or
what I
what you
thought.
were
what you're told to do.
Yes.
Yeah, we found that out.
Yeah. So, I was in my 20s and I'm doing what I think I need to do. But then I had lost my mom right as I turned, not long after I turned 20. And that actually was a turning point for me, just in the sense of understanding the impact. I know it sounds strange to say, but the impact of death and like how much as Americans, we don't talk about death.
Yeah.
So
Culturally, especially.
Culturally, yeah.
I think about I visited my family down in...
Death is uncomfortable. That's why we suppress it.
Absolutely. I just think about some family, up here, we probably handle like anybody. When we go to funerals, it's kind of a dark conversation. It's something we really want to talk about. Death and dying is just a very serious subject. It happens to everybody, and yet we just kind of put that to the side, right? Especially emotionally. But then I go visit family down in Texas, and there's pictures of loved ones on the honorary prayer table, Catholic, right?
Yeah.
And just honoring those people, celebrating them every year, talking about them consistently, showing pictures, showing and sharing stories, and totally different. Experience
Completely.
and relationship with those that have passed on.
That's a really beautiful thing that they're doing that.
Yeah. And so one of the things that I'm thinking about is really the science that goes behind some of the education, especially when you talk about thanatology and you're moving into this new kind of space and understanding the perceptions around death and dying. What have you learned so far that's been really helpful?
I think the biggest thing that I've learned is that death isn't just the loss of life. And if we can expand it a little bit bigger to understand that, yes, death is a loss of life, but it's also the loss of a dream. It's the loss of financially, it can be the loss of money. And that we have way more experiences with death than we realize. And, we can run from it all we want, but it's the one thing we're guaranteed other than taxes, according to Benjamin Franklin.
That's true.
I know somebody who doesn't pay their taxes. He's doing pretty good.
He's doing all right.
He's still alive.
But we run from these things, and yet what became real, and I did too, and that's actually why I leaned into mediumship, because I was uncomfortable with what I was experiencing. I leaned into thanatology because I was uncomfortable with how death affected me and my family. And so instead of running from these things, I leaned into them because I was tired of running. And that's why it took me till I was 40 to be a medium. I was running. And then I met my husband, because we were both previously married, and gosh darn it, do I have to marry another medium? Of course.
Of course.
So, when we bought our house out near Clintonville, almost, it was just 9 years ago in September, first thing we did, walk in the house and go, well, shit, this place is haunted. And and it's been a ride. He goes with me to
How did
England.
that first date go? I'm curious.
Oh my God, it was great.
I see you have energy. I see you also have energy.
First of all, y'all got to know I come from the bus company, Lamers. So he tells me he drives a school bus, and I'm going, shit. Who do you drive for? Is this date going to end before it's really started? And he's like, oh, I drive from New London School District. I'm like, oh my God, okay, we're okay.
You got to pass.
We're good. We're good. Because I didn't want him to have to tell me he drove for my family. And then I'm like, I'm so sorry. No, I'm kidding. But it was funny. We met at a bar in Appleton, Greenville, technically, I guess. And we're sitting there. And I don't even remember exactly how we got on the topic. I'm looking his way because I'm hoping he can mouth me something. No. How we got on the topic of ghosts. But he goes, yeah, my house is haunted. And I was like, sweet.
Yes.
This is somebody I can talk to. Because most,
on the first date, just comes up.
We closed the bar. They had to kick us out. We met at the bar at 8 o'clock. We had no clue what time it was. By 2:30, they're like, you have to go home. We're going, what? Why? Because it's 2:30 in the morning. Oh, shoot. Okay. And then, of course, he says to me, well, we're either going to get married or we're going to be best friends. One of the two.
Let's go.
So
that's awesome.
He was honest. He was right to the point.
And I thought, oh, God, he's cheesy as all hell.
Just fast forwarded through all the dumb details after that. There it is. All right.
No, but he's gone to England with me and studied mediumship right along with me at Arthur Findlay College in England. And, he's taken courses with Arthur Finley on Zoom, and he's worked on a mentorship with my mentor also through there. So, I mean, it's really nice to have somebody who fully gets it, but is also really practical and is, in that sense, isn't going, oh, this is haunted every time. He's going, okay, what's the rationale here? What can we figure out first? And that's what I needed. I wanted somebody who gets it, but also is logical enough not to just jump to conclusions. My ex-husband, bless his heart, used to shove me into places ahead of him and go, tell me if it's haunted.
You go.
We know what that means in the South.
Well, we were in the South, actually. We were in St. Augustine, Florida, when it happened.
In the lighthouse?
No, in the old jail. And he goes, oh, this place is probably haunted. Here, you go first. Tell me what you think. Like you. Yeah.
It's a jail that's been around for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Somebody died here at some
point. For sure.
They had the gallows right outside.
Yeah,
I mean, they'd hang people from it. You know, it's very haunted.
That's a pretty quick assumption that can be made at that point if there's gallows outside of a jail. Did somebody die here? Yeah.
Do you think you can share, what kind of information can you share about the mediumship? So obviously going overseas, getting training.
Yeah.
What does some of that look like if there's anybody that's interested?
So one of the reasons I chose to go overseas to train is because it's the number one place in the world to go. They're kind of going through some growing pains right now. So unfortunately, they're shifting, and hopefully we'll get back to where they were as a college. But they're spiritualist run, and if you're not familiar with spiritualism, it actually started in the U.S. It started out in the East Coast, and Lilydale is one of the best-known spiritualist locations in the U.S. And then there's another one in Florida, and for the life of me, I don't remember how to pronounce it, so I'm not going to butcher it. But they started spiritualism, and then it sort of hopped the pond over to the UK, but it took off like wildfire there, way more so than the U.S. So like the closest spiritualist church to me is West Allis down by Milwaukee.
So what is spiritualist?
Spiritualism is a religion. And so they believe that there's continuity after life. Like the soul does not die. And their goal is to prove that. And they do so through mediumship, but they take it very seriously.
So there's probably I'm just going to make an assumption because I'm an idiot on some of this stuff, but I'm assuming
we're all learning right now.
Well, I mean,
I'm like, what? There's so many things I'm learning.
Everybody loves this stuff, right?
Yeah.
You know me at this point.
I have so many questions. We're going to be here forever.
So back to spiritualism, right? So I'm assuming that there's they need mediums, right? But then there's a science base so they can prove it. Is that kind of what they're trying to do? So
the whole purpose of proving mediumship is proving it through evidence. It's the idea that please don't tell me anything about yourself or your loved one. Let me unfold that. Let me find that out through spirit. So I've gotten to watch some of the best, honestly, the best mediums in the world are not the ones that are famous. Some of the best mediums in the world are the very quiet ones who do their work. And I've gotten to see some of them, and they're incredible. They'll talk about the level of detail they get. This one was talking about how the husband would take and put on, it's going to sound funny, but it's also really heartwarming, put on his wife's robe, and that he would get rid of the tissue that was in the pocket of the robe because it was hers from when she passed. And his wife was telling her these things and trying to help him understand to learn to let go of some things because that tissue isn't her, but she's still present with him.
Damn.
Yeah. For me, my experience is a lot more visceral, where a lot of times spirits will come and they'll make me feel like they felt. First time it happened to me, I was doing a practice reading. My mentor was with me, and all I kept feeling is like, holy crap, I'm drunk. And he's like, that's evidence. I'm like, what do you mean that's evidence? I'm like, I feel like I'm going to throw up. He's like, yeah, it's evidence. And the woman, the moment I said that, she couldn't figure out who I was talking to at first. And she goes, oh my God, I know who it is now. And I'm like, seriously, this is what mediumship is? I'm going to have to feel like this? It is. Like they do whatever they can to communicate information, and it's not always fun. And sometimes you feel really sick, or you feel like, okay, this is like a mild heart attack. Thank you so much. Can you make this stop, please? And a lot of it gives a lot of really good information. Hardest ones I have to do is when a family member commits suicide. And helping families process through that. It's just part of the reason I went into thanatology. Because, mediumship only does so much. I needed to have sort of the science of like, how do you actually help people? Because some of this is so heavy that you don't know even what to say when it's over, when the reading's over. You feel like you should say something.
And I feel like not only is it somewhat difficult maybe for everyday person to listen to and to understand, but then when you have these raw, intense emotions, especially as a medium yourself, I think about, it's kind of some of the experiences I had growing up and, whether or not I believe or not believe, but there is undoubtedly moments in my life where there was the unexplainable, the emotions, the feelings, the chills, the loss of breath, the visions, seeing something. I remember those moments very specifically, and they typically happen when there was a lot of chaos happening in the home, or there was a lot of strain within the home, you know what I mean, which was an interesting thing too. So like, for example, I'll give one story that I share with my kids and they love it. We're growing up. And I went to school full-time in high school in Ripon, and I also went to work full-time. So I do the second shift thing. I get home right around 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock or something like that. And I would usually get ready, and then I'd go out. And my parents weren't really home that much, so I would just bounce home and get ready and then bounce over to my girlfriend's or wherever, right? Every time I'd come home from work, I had the basement spot, so I'd sneak in through the garage. It was a tri-level, and I'd get ready. And I would hear somebody walking upstairs quite often, to the point where it happened so often that one night in particular, and now numerous nights before, then I'd be like, hey, anybody there? Oh, nobody. Must have just heard something, just like we all do, right?
Yeah.
Then one night, I come there, and it's like somebody's in the house.
Oh.
You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm hearing things. Now I think somebody physically is in the house, and I'm scared. So I grab the baseball bat, and I'm going up the stairs doing the whole thing, like, hello? Anybody in here? I'm coming upstairs with a bat.
It's like every time I go into a tenant-occupied house.
Yes, exactly. So I'm like,
the baseball bat. I want to take the baseball bat with me.
So I come up the first steps. I'm in the kitchen, and it's a roundabout basically. So I go around, and I go through the kitchen, and I go through the living room, and there's nothing.
Yeah.
So I'm like, it's for sure the third floor, and this is where my brothers are, and this is where my parents' room is. And so I go upstairs. I'm like, that's it. I'm coming upstairs. If I see you, you're getting hurt. You know what I mean? I'm trying to be man. I'm like 17. You know what I mean? So I'm pumping my chest out, trying to do the whole thing. But in the inside, I can't breathe. I can hear like the pulsating in my ears. You know what I mean? And hands are sweaty. I'm thinking about it now. My hands are sweaty. And I go upstairs, and I'm literally doing the thing where I'm like pushing the bat into the closet. Like, okay, nothing. I leave Corey's.
Yeah, because that person's gonna grab the bat.
I leave Corey's room. That's my younger brother, and then I go into my parents' room. Now I know for certain. Now I'm like swinging in the closet. You know what I mean? Nobody. I'm pushing the clothes back. I'm like, okay, so now it's coming down a little bit. I'm like, okay, there's nobody here, but I'm like, I'm gonna go to the bathroom, and finally I kick the door open, and it slams against the bathtub, and I come swinging around inside the bathtub, and there's nobody. So now I'm like, okay, there's nobody upstairs. And I let my defenses down. And then I walk past the last room that I didn't check, which is my youngest brother's room. And there's this unmistakable feeling and emotion that I feel when I start passing the room. And I turn to the right, and I saw a representation of what I believe to be a little girl. And my heart felt like it stopped. I couldn't breathe. And I actually fell onto the hallway wall. And I left the house. And ever since then, it never happened again after that moment. But later to find out, a girl drowned in a pool in our backyard.
Oh, jeez.
And she was right around the same age as my brother, which she was in my brother's room.
That's crazy.
And so that was the first experience I had. And I don't care who it is. Anytime somebody's like, well, I don't believe in any of that paranormal activity stuff, I was like, I'm still a little bit curious, and I have questions too. But I know for certain, whether it was out of like this idea that I had or maybe some just feeling and emotion, I know I felt cold. I know I saw something, and I know it took my breath away. So whatever that was, and I also know it disappeared after that, and I didn't feel scared going into the house after that. It was almost like there was a communicated message that happened, that took place, and then it was done.
All I can think is she's like, I got to back off. He can't handle me.
He's freaking out. He's waving the bat everywhere.
Like,
I just want to play.
Oh, my God.
And so she could have been running upstairs every time I got home.
Yeah.
And then, whatever. So,
Absolutely.
but that's my first experience. And I just feel like a lot of people have those types of experiences, and then they just kind of forget about them and they just brush them aside. And that hasn't really happened much else after that, except for after when my son passed away, which was in 2020. And all the time, almost every single week, when I put my hand on his urn and I speak to him every single night, I will get chills and sensations down my spinal cord as if he's like right there in the room with me. And sometimes it feels like he's putting his arm around me or touching my shoulder or speaking right to me, where I feel like this emotion run through my body, where my eyes have literally almost rolled in the back of my head.
They do that.
And so I don't know what all that means. All I know that it has happened, and here we are.
I always love to tell people, I get it. I get the skepticism. I think it's healthy, because there is so many things that people are trying to fake, especially lately with AI and everything else, that, we have to be skeptical, and that's okay. But at the same time, you have to understand science is trying to catch up. It doesn't have all the answers yet. They're trying to catch up. And the concept of there being other dimensions is finally starting to be recognized fully, not just in quantum physics. So we always wonder, like in the paranormal world, are we dealing with the fact that time isn't linear, and are we dealing with, dimensional movement here? Is that what spiritual activity really is? And
is that hitting rewind on your life?
Or think about it. Like, is your life occurring in couple different, planes of existence? And you're kind of like peeking through either the past of that, the future of that, whatever it might be.
Is that why people say something along the lines like, oh, you have an old soul? That's something that they said to me forever.
Yeah.
Because I've always been able to connect with people, like, ever since I've been little. People have always shared their entire story with me. And so there's like an emotional connection there. And even like with people that have high energy, you came into Ashley's office and you did the same movements and mannerisms as Ashley did. And you're like, I think this girl's energy's in the room. And you're like, you're moving just like Ashley, actually.
That's weird.
That
That's wild.
happens a lot to me. I pick up on those things and those movements, the way people say
Ashley,
things.
Doing the arms,
dancing.
Like
That's what they
She's
call
gonna love
a
this
T-Rex,
episode.
just so you know.
She is.
Now, it's always fascinating to me. I was a paranormal investigator before I officially became a medium. And, I think going into this with healthy skepticism is the one thing that I always wanted to bring to people that we were trying to help, is this idea of, we're not doubting you, but we want to make sure that this is not, something that you're experiencing because there's legit things going on. Kind of like we talked about here with the high EMF levels. Had I had equipment with me, I would have been like off the charts in your kitchen. Just because you have a lot of electrical appliances in there, and they do. Fridges are one of the worst. They throw off a ton of EMF. So do water meters. Like the ones that can be read from the road, where they don't have to actually walk up to them. Lots of EMF.
How about microphones, cameras?
Yeah, they can throw a lot
lights.
of EMF. Yeah.
Action? No?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't have any.
But honestly, it's about giving people some answers. And I know one of the things I started doing when I started working as a medium is noticing that properties needed to have some sort of a cleansing done. They needed to have that energy, because energy gets stagnated. And sometimes people are like, oh, it's paranormal. And I'm like, no, it's actually your own energy. Like, if you've been through, like you kind of were saying, trauma, if you've had a lot of traumatic experiences, stuff kind of lingers. And sometimes we just need to move out that energy. Sometimes it is paranormal. But what we did recently is my husband and I just started a new team, because trauma is always connected to paranormal activity, whether it's land trauma or human trauma. I would say 99% of the time it's connected. So now we have a team that has 3 mediums, a psychologist, social worker, licensed therapist,
Wow. Come with a
because
whole army.
we realized that we need to address not just the paranormal, but the living. If we can address the living and help them, then the chances of the paranormal coming back are a lot slimmer, or like excessive activity is a lot slimmer. You know, where we have somebody who might be like a PK agent, which is psychokinetic agent. That's all human based, where their energy is so intense, they're literally causing things to move. They used to be called poltergeists. A lot of times people thought those were like separate entities. No, they're more of that person's energy and fears and all that, trying to find another place to live. To the point where it can
stuck and they're frustrated.
Well, the best one teenagers are the best at creating them because there's teenage angst.
This energy that they have, right?
We had a teenager though that we helped who was 16, and when she was like 9 or 10 years old, watched somebody get murdered right in front of her.
Oh my God!
Holy shit!
You know, and just like it got so bad. And she had so much fear and so much anxiousness that she created this PK energy, which was literally opening cabinets in their home. And then it started to take on a life of its own, where it's like you feed the beast so much that it suddenly has its own life, its own presence. And it started appearing to family members as this gigantic figure with a white head but no face, and the rest of its body was black, and it would take up the entire like floor to
I'll
ceiling.
pass.
They're thinking
That
this
sounds
is a
scary.
spirit.
Yeah.
And I walked in there and I went, that's not a spirit. That's not a traditional spirit. That's her creating a shield because she's had so much trauma she hasn't dealt with. And then, of course, as I'm trying to leave their place, they made my car, whatever the energy was there, completely like cut all the electrical on my Prius.
Oh no!
It's like, oh, I'm never leaving. Oh, God.
So let's actually talk about a little bit more of those moments. Like, what are the
Wait,
holy?
hold on. We're talking about cars and energies and.
I know.
So
I drive a Prius.
I gotta bring up the Tesla thing now.
All right, do it. Do it.
So have you seen the Tesla screens, and they drive through the cemeteries and they can see people walking?
Well, have you guys ever heard of the ghost hunting
I've not
equipment, the SLS system?
Yeah.
Okay. Structured light sensor is what it stands for. That came from the Xbox Connects.
Yep.
Because somebody had left their Xbox Connects on and started to see it pick up like stick figures when nobody was in front of it. It's similar with the Tesla. It's using that technology. I agree with it. I think it's picking up energy. So if we look at it rather than saying it's a spook, it's a ghost, it's energy. It picks up. And yes, that energy does have a form to it, and it might be a human form because it's probably human-related energy. And it's reading that, just like the SLS system picks that up.
Anybody watching, if you have a Tesla, I would like to borrow it.
Yes, we want to go through the cemetery here.
We'll be really safe with it.
Preferably the Riverside Cemetery in Appleton.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, what were you gonna say? Sorry, I did.
I'm just
I
like
was so
thinking
curious
about like
that.
over the years that you've been doing this, what are some of those wild stories that you can share? Because I think there's also like a connection point that people want to make based off of their own experiences, right? And there's so many confusing messages that we get out there. I was thinking about even just the movie I was watching last night. I turned on The Sixth Sense. I haven't seen that since it came out. You know what I mean? But a lot of the conversations that were
see dead people.
right, exactly. A lot of the conversations in there really stemmed around like this idea of this trauma that this boy was experiencing and some of the spirits or energies that were in the room. And some of that had negative energy, but they always were trying to communicate something to him. But, there's so many movies out there, from the Poltergeist to you name it.
Yeah.
And there's, Hollywood. But for your like professional standpoint, like what are some of the experiences you can share that are pretty wild and compelling that you think of since you've started?
I'm going to start with my real estate experience because you guys are in real estate.
Yeah, let's do it.
I had an old Victorian home out in Oconto, or Oconto Falls, I forget which, sorry, over by the bay, whichever one's over Oconto. Okay. This house had been on the market, when the market was heating up and things were selling really quickly. And this house was sitting and sitting and sitting, and they could not it went through, I think, 3 different realtors. And the one realtor who called me, happened to know a friend of mine, and she's like, I am like doing a Hail Mary pass here pretty much. Like, I don't know what else to do. If this doesn't sell, she's going to get rid of me because, this is just...
This is what happens, right?
It's what happens, right? And I get it. She's like, so I would love if you could come out and just give me your professional opinion on what you think might be going on here. Turned out this house, beautiful house, 3-story home with the ballroom on the 3rd floor kind of place. Mm-hmm. No reason it shouldn't be selling. However, the homeowner had such a tight bond with this house, even though she was living in another state now, that the house didn't want to be sold to anybody else yet. So in order to remedy it, we actually had to have the homeowner, it sounds crazy when I say it, but it worked, write her house a letter telling it that, what she appreciated about it, to let it go, that she's better off. Because it was almost like the house actually helped her through a really hard time. She bought it when, as a single woman, was going through a really rough patch, had gotten divorced, all these other things. And it was very much attached to her. The moment she wrote it, from the day I walked in that house to the day that letter came, was like total of 2 months passed before the house sold. It took 2 months to sell it. And the realtor called me back and said, I don't know what you did, but thank you, because we actually, like, the whole atmosphere of the house changed after that happened. And so a lot of what I do when it comes to locations is listen to them and figure out what's going on. Like, what does it need? I know it sounds strange, but so much energy gets imparted in a place, including my own home, that it's like some places want to take care of you and some places just want you to get the hell out.
Yeah.
And this place was trying to still take care of her, even though she was thousands of miles away.
Wow. I love it. All right. So for those listening, we now have extra services where we can provide a medium.
And we can cleanse your home. All right.
Shoot. Okay.
All right.
I'm really expensive. No.
Doesn't matter. You're going to sell your home, we have a medium.
One-stop shop for sure.
We got everything now. We got moving truck, we got party supplies,
exactly.
two rentals, medium services.
My husband's just out there shaking his head like, oh my God, no.
That's what an entrepreneur does. Yeah. Just think of all the ways. We got it now.
Yeah, and I got a marketing plan already in the back of my head.
Ready,
so, we can...
That's awesome.
Oh my gosh. So you do not just house cleansing, but you also do some form of life coaching. Is that what you were talking about before, as having a full comprehensive service?
Yeah.
Like where you're literally coming in, you're meeting with a person, maybe you're meeting with the home, you're going through that process, kind of feeling that out with them, deciding what's needed next. And then I would imagine there's some individual support for some of those people, right?
Always. That is the
Why
number.
did you decide to do that?
I needed that.
Mm-hmm.
You look at why somebody gets into business, and it's usually because they're either really passionate about it or they're passionate about it and they needed it themselves. Mm-hmm. And I started doing what's known as shadow work, which is a Carl Jung concept. And I didn't know that I did it for me. Like I have a background, my first master's degree is in curriculum and instruction as an educator. And I missed creating programs.
Mm-hmm.
I created curriculum in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. And I needed something. I was at a point where I was sick of myself. And I'm like, I need to shift. And I don't know how to do this. And so I started researching and pulling in all different materials. And I'm like, I like this, but I don't like the fact that I'm doing this on my own. Like nobody's holding me accountable. Nobody's helping me. I need somebody to listen. And that was kind of the aha moment. So then I had about 30 other people who were welcome to be, they were my guinea pigs. And we did it as a group. And that's when I realized a group setting does not work. People don't want to talk about their personal stuff in a group.
Not always.
So I do it as one-on-one.
We do a pretty good job of that here, but
yeah. Right.
So then I turn it into one-on-one sessions.
Yeah.
And that combined with using my psychic mediumship skills to kind of I do a reading at the end of every single session that I did with people on, okay, how can you move forward? Mm-hmm. And a lot of times it was stuff that people didn't want to hear. It's like, and I get it, because I was the same way where I'm like, I don't want to do that. Yeah. Like, please don't make me. Mm-hmm. But if they did, they had profound results. Mm-hmm. So I give all the credit to Spirit because I'm like, I have no idea why they're telling you to do this, but this is what's being told. Try it, see how it goes. It's up to you. And I've worked with, I've done this course. It's an 8-session, I call it, course, and each session's like 2 to 3 hours. And I've worked with over 100 people in it, and everybody's been thrilled.
Yeah.
I've seen some really cool. I did it as just a shadow work, and then I added the financial piece because my background in finance and helping people move through like their financial shadowy beliefs. And then I did like body image beliefs.
No kidding.
All areas I needed to work on. So I'm like, all right, what else do I need to work on? So every time I do it, I feel really called out because it's almost like those moments you get where you say something and then you're like, oh shit, that's for me too, isn't it?
Yeah. I literally just posted about it today. I was like, often the advice that we share is advice that we need to hear ourselves, right? And so that is the truth. I had something else, but I just dropped it.
Should we flip it?
Yeah.
All right, we flip it.
Let's go.
So now you get to be the interviewer.
Okay.
This is what we do every episode. We flip it.
Okay.
We don't prepare you either.
That's awesome.
So, but you already knew that because you have your people.
I do. They've been really quiet assholes. They're like, we're not going to tell you a damn thing. Good luck, kid.
Perfect. Hey, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Energy.
Yes, yes.
So questions I get to ask you. Okay. About anything?
Anything.
Okay. What led you to go into real estate?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's funny. I just brought that up. That phone call I was on when I came in, same thing. Guy was asking me that question. And it was really, I've always had an interest in real estate for whatever reason. A lot of people do, I think. And then was in a W-2 job. I was helping kids go to college to play sports, and it just became, at one point, it became more about money than it was kids, and I wasn't feeling that. And also, I kind of lost the fact that I was putting college on a pedestal, and when it's not for every kid, and especially from somebody who didn't graduate college themselves, so it's being hypocritical, right? So just got that ick kind of feeling towards the end, a lot of burnout, and my brother had gotten into real estate 2 years earlier. He had a lot of success, and he, kind of kicked me off the ledge, and we both went our own ways. There's so many different things you can do in real estate. So I started in investing, was trying to sell this house in Reedsville and lost my ass on it. But I love the transactional piece of it and all the people that real estate brings together. And as you know from our thing, I'm a big bringing people together type of person. And for me, it was like a natural thing. And so my past of life coaching teenagers to college athletes, and then just seeing a lot of young people wanting to get into real estate and seeing people get better or trying to better themselves. I used real estate that way, and I still do all the things. I have real estate ADD, but that's why.
That's a great way to put it.
Oh, I definitely do.
Okay, Matthew. So what is your spookiest experience? Because we haven't heard your spooky experience.
So the spookiest one is for me going back all the way to like 7th grade-ish, seventh grade summer, maybe going into 8th grade. And in that age, in the mid-90s, we just biked everywhere.
Oh, yeah. Kick the can, maybe.
Oh, God,
yeah.
So my friend's mom owned this old farmhouse towards Angelica, and I was always creeped out about it. And then his sister lived upstairs. Well, she moved out. She got into some bad stuff and moved out of the house. So he moved upstairs. It was time for him. So those summer nights where it's super hot. We're in the attic of a old farmhouse, and we have the fan. You have the old air conditioner fan in the window trick, And so
is
we're
that
blowing,
working?
we're
Is it
blowing
face
that
the right
in.
way?
It's probably the witching hour-ish, 3-4 o'clock in the morning. And all of a sudden the room got super cold. And I look outside and I can see lightning flashing and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, maybe there's a storm coming, whatever. And my buddy he was kind of an asshole to me. But he goes, take the fan out of the window, close the window. I'm like, yeah, okay. So I do it, set it down on the ground. Go to lay back, and I had to sleep on the floor too, on this hardwood floor in the attic. So on my sleeping bag. So I go sleep in the sleeping bag, or I go lay back down on the sleeping bag. Like a minute later, the fan goes off, and I'm like, well, that's interesting. And he gets up, he's pissed at me. He's like, I told you to turn the effing fan off, and I'm like, I did. You saw me turn it off, dude. Literally,
somebody just turned it back on.
So I go unplug the fan. As I'm walking across the room, the fan goes on full blast. And I'm like, yep, I'm out.
I'm going home.
I pedaled my bike. Seriously, I ran out of that house at 3:30 in the morning, 4 in the morning, and I pedaled for 3 miles to my house, in pitch black, country roads. Got knocked on the door of my house, and my mom goes, "What are you doing?" And I go, "I'll explain in the morning. I just need to go to bed."
All right, just
Just let me back in our home.
Yeah, just let me in. So luckily the storm was, it was like one of those far off storms or whatever, so it didn't hit. So it was lightning the whole drive home, but it never got me. But that was what kind of set off all the curiosity for me into paranormal. And then, we would go and my friend Erin, who works here, we would always go to Hotel Hell in high school and scoop around there. Her family lived right next door. I didn't know that, man. But Erin will tell you it's not a big deal to her. So so we would do that, and then just over time we would go to we talked about me going to the Winchester Mansion earlier, and it's just always something that's been super curious to me. And I mean I've seen a few things, but nothing like super crazy for me. I'm not sensitive, or maybe I am, but I don't realize it, kind of thing.
Right.
Too much ADD sometimes to notice.
Yeah, for sure.
That's true though. Like a lot of people who have ADD are actually sensitives. People who are autistic are actually sensitives. That it's part of the reason like they're so sensory issues. They experience things at a really high level. A lot of children go through what I went through, which is people don't understand. They think there's something wrong, or like they're overly emotional, and they're actually functioning at an energetic level that's a lot higher and really hard to understand for a lot of parents. So I do also end up having to talk to parents a lot about their children and how they're okay.
I think the hardest part for me, and as far as energy goes, is I have a very hard time seeing the bad in people. I can pick it up right away, but I always can see the best in somebody and know their potential like almost right away. But the hard part for me is getting them to there. That's my biggest frustration, is seeing where they're at right now to get them to where their potential is. And I know that we talked about that.
That is hard. That's the empath in you. That's the one who can always see the potential and then get really frustrated when a person doesn't see it for themselves.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Honestly, what's interesting for both of you is if you find that you have, and for anybody who's listening, if you find that you have experiences throughout life, I always thought, man, do I just pick like the most haunted places to work and live? No, not necessarily, because my siblings never had paranormal activity experiences. I found you are kind of like the lighter fluid in a location. You just give it that little extra oomph and it can light up for you, and it might not for somebody else. So people can have different experiences in the same location. And I think for a lot of people, they're going, well, I'm crazy then. I guess maybe I'm just making it up. And you're probably not. I say probably not, because there's,
there might be some
percentage.
There might be some make-believes.
A little bit. You got anything for Anthony?
Was your son 5 when he passed?
No.
Was he older?
It's interesting. 5 is a transition moment between the both of us that I always bring up. It was a moment when he came to me really young, and it was when I needed to get help. And he, at 5 years old, was able to communicate a message that he thought I was dying. It was from drugs and alcohol. And he communicated that message to me like, hey, I love you and I don't want you to die, which I thought was always so strange to me, because he was so young and he had no idea what I was going through, but yet he could communicate a very strong message. It's almost like he was like an old soul himself,
That's interesting.
And he was such a bright light, so much energy. And unfortunately, that energy isn't here as much, but I do feel it quite often.
That's interesting, because 5 just kept coming in every time I looked at you, and I was like, I don't know if that's years or what that means. Sometimes the hardest part about mediumship is we get glimpses or we get little pieces, and then you don't always understand how those pieces fit together. But I don't know, it just kept getting 5.
That's the only reason 5 sticks out right now anyways.
5.
And I'll be thinking about it. I'll be at home just laying in bed.
5.
5. I was like, well, not that.
It was a pivotal point, though, wasn't it, for you?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
And he was 5. Now, maybe when I was younger, maybe something happened that I don't recall.
No, this is all about him. Yeah.
No.
Okay.
What's interesting about Gavin is that the most messages I've received about Gavin is actually not what I've experienced. It's actually experiences that other people will carry. And it tends to be people that don't know Gavin very well. I've had quite a few people in the last 4 years reach out to me from other states and other cities and say, Gavin visited me in a dream last night, and he just told me that he wanted you to know that he's worried about you and that he's okay. And It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like those kind of messages, or, there was a message that needed to be communicated, but it was always through somebody else. And I always thought it was really interesting because the people that reached out, they just didn't know him. They never had a connection with him.
Yeah.
But they had these very visceral experiences in the middle of the night, like in dreams. And I always thought that was really interesting. So I don't know what that means or if it means anything at all, but I feel like I'm really close to Gavin today.
Good.
Yeah.
To say it doesn't, people always worry like they're reading too much into things.
Mm-hmm.
And I always like to say, maybe you're not reading enough sometimes. Like they go out of their way a lot of times to try and get the message through to the point where sometimes even for me, it's obnoxious. So like walking into here today, my ears were ringing so bad. I was like, oh, shoot, what is this going to be today? What do they have planned for me?
Yes.
Or if I don't do mediumship enough, I know it because my ears hurt and I start having like weird experiences.
Yeah.
Because I don't do mediumship. I used to do it all the time, and I don't do it all the time because it was too much.
Actually, I think if we just have a couple minutes, if you could condense the walkthrough of our building real quick for everybody, because I think that'd be a perfect way to close on this episode, because it was kind of creepy. You know what I mean? Like,
we need people to come in here. We have renters.
It was great energy.
And
it's so fantastic, as long as you stay in the middle of the building.
Especially the middle.
So really, Monty's office.
Monty's office is good. Front area is good. It's all great energy.
Yes.
Just the left, the right. Stay away. No.
But there's energy to be found. And we actually found we're just on older land, and it could be a lot of that, right?
Well, and a lot of what we do when we look at land, whether we're doing paranormal investigating or working as a medium, is trying to understand the layers, which was so perfect when you brought out that plot map and we're looking at the different years and the layers. Because land holds the energy, and you've got swamp nearby, and water's a great conductor.
We have a pond in the back.
Yeah, you've got the pond in the back. And I just kept picking up that you have, the wings of this building are really heavy, but it doesn't mean bad. Everybody always thinks paranormal is going to automatically assume like it's bad, and you're not automatically going to be possessed. I promise you. Good. Please don't be, or don't prove me wrong. No.
Right.
But you will pick up on things that are, I like to call them elemental in nature. They're not really human, but they're not demonic or anything like that. They're just elements of energy that don't really have a human quality to them. And sometimes they look like animals and sometimes they don't. And you've got some of that going on. And I don't 100% know why yet, but you also have a lot of very curious human spirits around this area. A lot of what seems to be people who farmed or settled the area are very curious about what's going on in this area.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
One of the first buildings around, right?
Yeah, it's a new build. It's a newer building, so they're peeking in from the outside, checking
And
it
it's
out.
a new season here with a new team. And
I'm not going to invite them in, but they can peek.
yeah, they can
Take a look at it.
I don't even think they want to be invited in. It's more like the looky-loos of like, "Hey, what you got over there? Like, what you doing?"
They can look at our
That's
pond
cool.
if they want.
Hey, the pond is nice.
Yeah.
It's great.
Suddenly you've got all these like spectral beings in your pond. Whoa.
They just make the fish bigger when we go fishing. It's cool. We're good there. We're good there. Have you, now creepy note, have you ever run into a demon?
So that's hard for me to say, mostly because I don't necessarily agree with the concept of a demon.
Okay.
I think it's very much a construction of religion. And I look at it as there's positive and negative. And have I run into negative stuff? Oh, absolutely, I have. I don't know if I'd classify it as demonic, only because a lot of times paranormal energy that's negative feeds off of off of human negativity.
Sure.
So where do we tend to see negative energy? Places where there was a lot of like abuse to other humans. Waverly Hills Sanitarium's one of them.
Yeah.
Asylums, any of the big, like Eloise Asylum out in Michigan's another one. So we have that, but have I run into it? Yes. I've run into it outside my own home.
Hi.
Yeah. Part of it is because, when you're a medium or you're even a sensitive, you're like a lighthouse. Everything just like congregates towards you and you're going, what the hell is going on here? Honestly, the one place I went where I ran into the worst negative energy that made me uncomfortable was in New Franken.
Really?
Yeah. There had been a house that had been featured on the Dead Files that was in New Franken.
Oh, I know about that house.
Yeah. I was given the opportunity
that
to
house is creepy just walking past it.
Yeah. I got to
The
investigate
supper club's
it.
right next door.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
We got to actually investigate the house for the owners at that time to help. And we were in the basement. And this is one of those moments early before I became a medium where I realized my mediumship was coming back, because we're doing what's known as a spirit box session where, you're running that AM, FM frequency. And suddenly we asked about a room that we could see had been like bricked off, but then there was like a little window. We're like, well, what's in that room? And suddenly I heard what I thought came in through the spirit box go, if I told you, it would make you cry. Now, if you know spirit boxes, you get like 2 words and you're excited in a row, okay? Not a whole sentence.
Yeah, because it's basically white noise.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And it was like crystal clear. And I'm going, oh my God, did you all hear that? Did you hear that? Did you? And my team leader at the time when I was on the other team was like, yeah, we heard it. Yeah. It took her like a year to fess up. Nobody heard it but me. Didn't even capture it on a digital voice recorder. And it was so crystal clear to me. And then I was like, whoa, like what is going on here? To the point where even now I'll look at my team members and be like, is it me or is it everybody? Like, you all hear this or is it just me?
Yeah.
But that was, and it just felt awful down there. It felt like the person was behind me telling that to me. And all I could think was, what the hell happened in this place? No wonder why they're having so many issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, that's a cool way to wrap this up.
Yeah. Yes. My curiosity is
Oh my
just
God.
running
I got
wild.
so many
I could
stories.
I could literally sit here.
We could do this for another hour
I
at
know.
A
least.
couple hours would
Yeah,
be good.
for sure.
We'll have to have her back season 2.
Absolutely. We really appreciate you sitting
That's
down.
awesome.
Oh, thank you.
If
I
there's any last thing you'd like to say, if anyone's out there listening and is just a little curious, what would you want to tell them?
If you think you're sensitive and you think you're picking up on stuff, you are. Everybody writes it off, and I want people to know everybody is born with the ability to be a medium, to be able to hear things and pick up on things intuitively. It's culturally and it's conditioning that causes us to shut it down. Like we're wired for this, so give it a try.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How can they find you, Jennifer?
I hide. I'm a little bit harder to get a hold of lately just because of everything going on with my master's degree and balancing my life between mediumship and the real world of finance. But I can be found at jensilluminatedpath.com. I have my own website. And Facebook, same thing, Jen's Illuminated Path.
Awesome.
That's
We'll make
awesome.
sure to share that.
And
as
I would
well.
recommend, once your schedule opens up, I've done a reading before. My wife's done one.
Yeah, I'm
It's
about to schedule one.
It's crazy how accurate it was and what we uncovered, and even more so for my wife on just like the stuff that happened, but for me to like learn about myself.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't a lot about me personally, but it was myself that was really cool that came out. So it was a lot of validation.
Yeah. No, I definitely open to it, especially after today's discussion. So if anybody is listening out there, make sure you check out those details. We'll put them all in the detail notes. And of course, we would love to have you back next season as we tap into new conversations.
Oh, yeah.
But at the end of the day, this is episode 36, and it's Your Neighbor podcast. This is the season closer, so we will be back. I don't know, let's say in a couple months. You know what I mean? Basically,
As soon as we get our stuff together.
After the holidays.
As soon as we get our stuff
Yeah,
together,
exactly.
We'll be back.
And we'll be back for season 2. So thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts for listening all the way up to episode 36. We hope we have many more episodes to come.
Yep.
My name is Anthony Alvarado.
I'm Monty Raymond. Thank you, everybody who supported the show so far to this point. Thank you, all of our sponsors. We love you guys, and we'll be back.
We'll be back. Thank you.